All right, all right, all right. Welcome to Crossbar Conversations with Don and Blige, powered by the United Goalkeeping Alliance. We want you to come in, sit back, and enjoy a podcast all about goalkeeping on the pitch, sideline to sideline, and everything in between. Whether you're a coach, goalkeeper, a parent, we are exploring every corner of the position with honest conversations, pushing the culture of goalkeeping forward and opening up space for the discussions that matter. Kind of talk others shy away from, but booyah! We lean into them. No holds barred. Big thanks to our sponsor, the United Goalkeeping Alliance. We'll share more about the UGKA later in the show, but for now, let's get this party started. Here's Don, Blige, and Eric.
Hello, everybody. Eric Eisenhut of the United Goalkeeping Alliance here. Welcome to another episode of Crossbar Conversations with Don and Blige. Don, Blige, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good to see you. Nice to be here. Dr. Bill, I'm excited about our conversation.
So am I. I'm always happy to talk about this. This is an interesting thing, situation, dilemma, things that goalkeepers have to address.
Yeah. Today we have Dr. Bill Steffen with us today. We're going to speak about the pressures of goalkeeping, and this is going to go in a lot of different directions, and it's going to hit a lot of audiences. Really quickly, let's introduce Dr. Bill if we could. This is very long, so I'm going to go quickly if I could. Dr. Bill, you bring a heck of a resume to you. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. Currently, Dr. Bill is the Associate Professor of Sports Science at Wingate University. He's been with the United Soccer Coaches. I didn't know you, 30 years, Dr. Bill. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, I'm not counting.
You are the lead instructor, lead educator for goalkeeping education. I believe that's a recent transition for you, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
You've been in the collegiate game for 27 years with the likes of UNC, Duke, Oregon, UNC, Greensboro, Furman, and Ohio University, two-time national championship at University of North Carolina. And you're also the recipient of the United Soccer Coaches Berticelli Award in 2016, which is given to someone with outstanding contributions to soccer education. Dr. Bill, welcome.
Hey, thanks. I'm happy to be here. Happy to talk with you guys.
Yeah, Don's doing the right thing. I agree. We're not worthy. I think only a couple people know that movie.
This is fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, if I could, just do a 10-second introduction to the topic and then turn it over to you, Dr. Bill, for kind of opening remarks. But the pressures of goalkeeping, we're going to speak to it from every angle with parents and goalkeepers and head coaches and goalkeeper coaches, and just what's the support system needed. But if I could, I'd just like to turn over the general topic of pressures of goalkeeping to you for your opening remarks.
Yeah, I think this is something that is unavoidable. But at the same time, if we learn to kind of understand how this affects our performance and how this can affect our career as a goalkeeper, I think it's important. And then that can extend obviously to a lot of other holistic kind of developments of kids in terms of how do they deal with pressure, and how do they view stress and pressure as they perform. And so I think it's a really interesting topic, because again, when I was back in the day when I was playing, I learned to really love the pressure, and I want to kind of expand on kind of like a rationale, hopefully make people understand how pressure is facilitated rather than debilitated. In other words, how does pressure make me play better instead of making me play worse? Now, there are different directions you can go in there, because sometimes when under pressure, we may not play well. But I think that ultimately we want to view pressure as not necessarily a requirement, but often a chief ingredient in our best performances.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dr. Bill. The question for you, how young, say a goalkeeper gets involved, a player gets involved, want to be a goalkeeper 10 years old. How young would you start incorporating a psychological pathway for goalkeepers to get them going in the right direction, or is there? Go ahead.
I think what you're referring to is kind of like the dosage. How much pressure do we give a 10-year-old versus how much pressure do we give a 16 or 18-year-old. And obviously, the younger they are, the less pressure. A 10-year-old, I don't want any pressure because I want them trying things without fear of mistakes or the pressure of making a mistake, because that's how they're going to be learning. And as they develop and as they become comfortable, tests are automatized, they're able to do a lot of the skills requisite to goalkeeping. I think that then you can start to now let's administer some pressure, some demands on your performance. I think at the early ages, as you mentioned, sometimes, between 10 and 12, there's no pressure. There's no pressure. You're just going to try things. And hopefully they work out. If they don't, let's talk about why they don't. Let's talk about how you can accommodate that situation, how you can fit and be successful in meeting that demand. So I think that at a young age, you really want to limit the pressure. A lot of kids will put pressure on themselves. That's okay, but they need to understand that pressure isn't necessary yet. At some point, I think it's a good thing. But the idea that a 10-year-old should be starting to accommodate pressure is probably a little bit extreme. One of the interesting things with pressures is an idea called sympathetic toughening. And the analogy to like resistance training or weight training is very appropriate. As players develop, as they become more accomplished and more comfortable in goal, we want to administer pressure. And at first, very light, just as if you were lifting. When you start, it's very, very light. But as you start to accommodate that, and as your body and your performances adjust to that, now we want to give you a heavier load. Okay, so you had a bit of pressure. Let's put some more pressure on you. Or we put on a bit of pressure and it wasn't that successful. So let's learn how to accommodate that pressure. Let's learn how to deal with it. And once we are successful dealing with it, now we're going to put you up to here, this much pressure. Now up to here to this much pressure. And by continually increasing that, just as we would with weight training, as you learn to accommodate it, we're going to give you more. And that's going to make you stronger. And I think that analogy helps because I think a lot of players and a lot of goalkeepers understand that process. And if they realize, oh, this is the same thing as whatever strength training I'm doing. It's a very similar process. So I think that helps the goalkeepers learn to accommodate the pressure.
That's a great perspective, Dr. Bill. And but going to being involved with the ODP program in Jersey, we have tryouts every year, and I see these kids come in and they are so nervous. They're afraid to make mistakes, and even at 12 years old and so on. And it seems like there seems to be a disconnect somewhere where I don't know if it comes from the parents or if maybe it comes from the coaches of their club teams to constantly push. And I see these kids having difficulty with that. I mean, one of the things we always stress is make mistakes. Please. I said,
Yes.
if the kids can understand how many mistakes, like individually, I made along my career, but you learn from every one of them. And I know they understand, I know they hear that, but I think it's important somehow for us to really cement that into their development of how to get it done. Because I think I know the kids are under pressure all the time just to perform well, but then I don't think the parents understand the chronology of it. A lot of coaches don't get it. And they push these kids, even at the youngest level. The negative reinforcement that I see comes from coaches, team coaches towards the goalkeeper position can really shatter these kids getting out of the gate. So I think it's important for us, and I'd like to hear your point on this. It's important for us to really start something at an age where these kids start understanding, the parents understand, the coaches understand. There's a progression here. Just like you said, the weight training, that kind of thing. That's a great analogy. But I'm curious as to try to figure out how we can incorporate the learning process into goalkeepers at a younger age so they feel better in the process. Does that make sense?
No, agreed. I think this could kind of be a topic for a whole nother hour, just if we talked about kind of like an intrinsic pressure versus an extrinsic pressure. In the situations you described, like an overbeat trial, the goalkeeper is going to put enough pressure on themselves so that when they get stressed from a coach, they get stressed from parents, that's too much. They are not at a stage where they can accommodate all that pressure. So the coach, the parent, needs to make sure that they are not, emphasizing the consequences of the situations. They are not adding to that pressure, because again, the child, the kid, the goalkeeper that's trying out, they're going to put pressure on themselves. And so when you have this additional pressure, especially at a young age, they can't accommodate all that. So I think that's where parents and coaches need to be educated in terms of, look, here's the situation. There's going to be some pressure on you, kid. So don't compile that. Don't add to that, but rather see what you can do to support that. Look, yeah, this is important. Yeah, no, you want to make the team, right? Oh, good. So go out and do your best. Do your best. And I think if parents understand that, that will help their child, and that'll also help the parent as they understand that. There's been some research into, and I just had a conversation with Sky Eddy about parents attending practice. And even if a parent is supportive, when a parent attends a practice, that kid, the kids they surveyed, felt like there's a negative amount of pressure being put on by their parents, even if the parents are supportive, even if the parents aren't, screaming at them, don't screw up, things like that. So I think parents just need to understand that, when can my child accommodate pressures from outside sources, external pressure, extrinsic pressure? And they don't necessarily want to add to that. They want to realize, okay, look, my child is 12 years old. I'm going to try and, help them relax a little bit about it. Say, okay, look, have a good game. We're going to go to Subway on the way home, that kind of thing. There's been some research also talks about, do we even want to have trying out at the age of 10? Again, I understand the system, and I know that that's probably going to happen regardless of what we say. But as kids grow, then we can start to, then as they start to mature and they start to have a lot of experiences, they can then start to accommodate, the internal pressures. And they're probably going to have less internal pressure, but that's when the pressures from outside sources compile, so that the sum is something that they're capable of dealing with. If there's less intrinsic pressure, I can accommodate extrinsic pressure because my total pressure load is at a level that I can deal with. I'm hoping that makes sense.
Sure, very good sense.
I hear the age, 10 to 12, and I'm just curious, do you have a belief that a certain goalkeepers or kids shouldn't really start goalkeeper training until a certain age? Like for me, with the clubs that I work with, if they are under the age of 10, I don't let them come to goalkeeper training because, one, I don't think they need to be pigeonholed into that position yet, which many coaches
agreed.
do. And I don't think they understand the pressure of the position. And so they're a little frightened by it. And they feel like if they make a mistake, they've let the team down. And so they're putting all this pressure on themselves. And it's also coming from outside sources as well. And they don't know how to deal with it. And so you end up losing a kid that probably could be a pretty good goalkeeper because they start too early.
No, I'd agree. I think if you're talking 10 to 12, maybe even up to 14, I think, okay, yeah, now you want to be a goal. Okay, so you can play half the game. You can play in goal. The other half, you're going to play as a midfielder, as a forward, as a defender, whatever. And I think that can, especially the situation you're describing, Don, is, the kid feels all this pressure as a goalkeeper, but half the game, they're not a goalkeeper. And that will help relieve a lot of the pressure. It doesn't relieve the pressure specific to goalkeeping, but it relieves the pressure of the game. And I think that can help. I think as kids start to develop and start to become a little bit more kind of like what we're describing, they kind of lean more towards goalkeeping. Okay, now they need to stay in goal more, and they need to understand, yeah, there is pressure, but this is kind of like a good thing. One of the things I'll do when I talk with young goalkeepers, but when I also talk with coaches, just in general, I say, okay, so who wants to play in a stress-free environment? And everybody raises their hand. Okay, who wants to play in a national championship game? And everybody raises their hand. It's like, no. You can't have both. I mean, I've been in national championship games. That's the most pressure you can have. But that's what I want. So if you're a goalkeeper, and this will be kind of like not necessarily a contradiction, but this is one of the ways to help open the young goalkeeper's eyes to it. It's like, do you want to play in a national championship? Yes. Okay, then that means you want to play with a lot. So you want that pressure. And then hopefully the kids, you see the light bulb go, oh yeah, I do. And understand that, yeah, that's kind of like you'd be lucky if you had that pressure because, not many people get to play in a national championship game, but you want to, and that's going to be the best, that you can do. The other thing I'll do is I'll just share my experiences. If again, I think we're all veteran goalkeepers here. If you look back and say, what's the best game you played? What was your absolute best game? It's probably going to be a close game. Yeah, well, we blew out so and so 5-0. That was my best game. No. It's like, okay, we won 1-0 in overtime. That was your best game. So think about that's your best game, and that had a lot of pressure because it was a close game. It was a battle. So you actually performed best when you were under pressure. And again, what we're trying to do is make the younger kids, the goalkeepers, understand that this pressure can be, and as I mentioned earlier, the pressure and stress can be facilitated. In other words, it brings about your best performances rather than debilitative, bringing about your worst performances. Now, if a kid does struggle in a high pressure situation, then we need, and I think Raji talked about it earlier, the support. We need a coach, a parent, or somebody to say, okay, so what happened there? Okay, you were nervous. Okay, so you were nervous, but I don't care if you're nervous or not. You call it nervous, call it excitement. But what did you do that wasn't helpful? What did you do that you would want to change? And I think asking that question of kids is really helpful because it gives them, first off, it engages them a lot more in the solution. And I think it helps them be aware of, okay, here's what I've got to do. Here's how I've got to address that situation. There's all sorts of interventions that you can do with kids. Controlled breathing. You can point out, okay, watch any NBA player take a free throw. What's one thing in common with NBA players when they take a free throw? They'll take a deep breath before the free throw. Okay, that kind of controlled breathing can help lower your anxiety. That can help lower your stress. So control your breathing. Don't start, panting in shallow breaths very frequently. There's other things that can be done, more interventions direct like that. But I think one of the things that you want kids to do is, again, understand this pressure. This is why goalkeeping is unique. This is why goalkeeping, and again, I think I can say it to this audience, why goalkeeping is the best position, is the toughest position, and requires the best athletes because they have to be able to deal with this. And so I think that again, you can tell that to a kid once and they'll kind of go like, yeah, maybe, but you just got to reinforce that and say, this is why the position is so important. This is why there's going to be pressure on you that's not on other pressure or other players rather. If a midfielder screws up defensively, got a defender behind him. Goalkeeper screws up, there's nobody back there. And I think the young goalkeeper, the kid has to understand, yeah, this is the nature of the position. So if they're not really good with that, then maybe they're not going to be a successful goalkeeper. So they have to understand that's the evils of the position, the evils of the job, requirements of the job.
I had a goalkeeper, a girl. I started training her when she was like 11 or 12, I think. And she kind of took off. She was a good athlete, and she took off with her technical ability very, very quickly. And she got about 14 and 15, and she hit a little roadblock. And she was struggling mentally and trying to get over something, whether it was in her life or in part of the game, but everything seemed to affect her game and how she performed. And the result, her technical ability started going down. because of the stuff was going on inside her head. So I hooked her up with Dr. Dave Pilchman. I don't know if you've ever met Dr. Dave Pilchman, but
Yeah.
he did work with us with Rutgers. He's a sports psychologist. He's retired now,
Hmm.
but he had a very good way of connecting people's minds and spirits into what they're doing and how to navigate the whole thing. One of the questions he asked her, which I thought was very interesting, said, "How long have you been practicing your technical part of the game? Whether it's your foot skills, you were a field player for a while, goalkeeping." She said, 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years." Okay. Then he asked her, "How many years have you been training your mind?" Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that really opened my eyes a lot to it, realizing that, okay, here we are as a group trying to develop goalkeeping across the board and around the world. How much time do we actually take in our training sessions to help train the mind? And that kind of changed my whole approach to training.
Mm.
Where I originally started out just doing technical work because, I'm a latecomer to the position. So I didn't know how to navigate it and teach it at start. Um, so now I tried to incorporate, like, one of the problems I think, Dr. Bill, is that, like, when the kids are training, that's exactly all they're doing is training. They're not training their mind to handle the situation that they're training to put it into a game environment. So what I try to incorporate now is that I ask the goalkeepers, you're not training right now. When your repetitions come up, you're now playing a game. This is your World Cup right now. Let's see if you can flip yourself from just going in and go through the routine of getting your technique down.
Mm.
Can you change your mind pattern and say, I'm going in for the next minute and a half, 2 minutes, and this is my game? Can you develop that part of your mind so that you're so into what you're doing, it goes greater than just trying to catch and do what the coach wants us to do as activity. And it seems to be working. Okay. But the problem is I feel like a fish out of water sometimes because, some of the techniques that we do in UGKA is all about trying to help the complete player, but there's not enough people doing it. Like we have people who don't know how to train the mind during the training sessions to help them to deal with the pressures, if that kind of makes sense to you.
Yeah. Yeah. There's all sorts of different. Um, I don't know if I want to say. I probably would sound better if I said the word interventions, but there's all kinds of tricks you do in training to try and help kids with this. Um, One of the things that I thought worked very well for me is I was at UNCG training a goalkeeper, Chelsea Kearney, who was a very good goalkeeper. And we just do an exercise which we call rhythm shooting, where uh, one of the goalkeepers had I think it was like 14 balls here, and she'd roll the ball, I'd strike it at goal. She'd roll the ball, I'd strike it at goal. And Kelsey was in goal, had to make saves continuously. And one of the things I liked about that was that if she made a mistake, I'm not slowing down. I'm just going to hit another ball. And at the end of the 14 balls, then I'd stop and I'd say, what did what could you have fixed? What would you have done differently on, I hit 3 balls to your lower right that you didn't get to. What can we do about that? And I think the fact that that training occurred and she couldn't stop and dwell on a ball that got by her or a mistake she made. She had to go right back. Boom! I'm not stopping. We're not going to stop and coach through this. We're going to keep going. And I think that's a very functional way to have a kid, have to respond to. Okay, here's a situation where something bad happened. Doesn't matter. I've got to get up and say that next one. Um, and that was very effective. One of the things I've done with a lot of kids is I'll talk about, again, some sports psychologists, again, I'm kind of one of them, but some of the sports psychologists talk about, oh, well, if you make a mistake, just forget about it. And not as a sports psychologist, but as a goalkeeper, I'm going like, hell no. If I'm in a mistake, I'm upset.
Hmm.
But I don't want that to affect my play going forward in this game. So what we'll ask them to do is to, in your mind, on a 3x5 card, write down the mistake, write down the situation, put it in your pocket. After the game, let's take out those 3x5 cards. And those 3x5 cards are going to dictate what we train on the next couple of days. And I think allowing the kid to acknowledge the mistake, recognize what they should have done, and say, okay, this is something I need to work on. Great. That's what I want to hear. because that's what we're going to do. We're going to work on it. So I think, again, just given the nature of goalkeeping, if there's a mistake, if I make a mistake, I'm going to be upset about it. I'm going to learn about it, but I'm going to take that and park it, if you will, for a while because I've still got to perform. And there's other, interventions, tricks you can do. Some people, and I think some good sports have suggested, use of a cue word. In other words, you say something that says all that bad stuff is gone. Okay, I'm mad until I say that cue word, and I did that, and I won't repeat the cue word I use here, but just to say, okay, when I say that, I am done. Okay, now I'm ready to play again. And I think giving kids these ideas of this is something you can do. Because again, I don't know about y'all, but I mean, like I just learned how to deal with this just through happenstance, trial and error. But as I started to receive more academic work, more theory work, kind of on sports college, there were some ideas that came up that I think were very helpful. So we're trying to share, just like we share tricks about technique, we're trying to share tricks and interventions about, the mind, the mental performance.
We will be back after this message from our sponsors.
Goalkeeper coaches, are you spread too thin? Are you coaching small groups? Are you coaching at a club? Are you coaching private sessions? Are you coaching in college? Are you selling equipment? Are you selling gloves? Are you running your own camps? Are you running your own clinics? Simply put, everybody, goalkeeper coaches have a lot going on and they need at least 4 to 5 resources to make it work as a goalkeeper coach. Here at the United Goalkeeping Alliance, we're here to help all goalkeeper coaches with their development in their goalkeeper coaching careers. For $99 a year, yes, a cup of coffee a month, you will join the United Goalkeeping Alliance as a goalkeeper coach and have the opportunity to collaborate with over 175 goalkeeper coaches worldwide. You'll have an immediate connection into the collegiate game to be able to share your highlight film of your goalkeepers, in addition to the ability to recruit if you are a goalkeeper coach at the collegiate level. You'll have 24/7 online and live support with business ideas, curriculum, and lesson plan support. We will also promote your club, your academy, your equipment, and anything that you do through our social media outlets. Last but not least, and definitely an important variable, all UGKA coaches have the opportunity to earn 50% commissions on all clubs and goalkeepers that they bring in to the United Goalkeeping Alliance. If you'd like to learn more, please reach out to me, proud board member Eric Eisenhut of the United Goalkeeping Alliance, at the contact information above. Thank you for listening, and back to our episode.
And now back to our episode.
I got a question for you, Dr. Bill. I started doing a type of training, what I call sequence training, which, for example, a goalkeeper gets to ask for the ball back from a server, 1 or 2 touches it back with communication, does a footwork pattern through some cones or whatever, gets in a set position, receives some type of a catching, and then distributes the ball back to the server. In that little sequence right there are sometimes 10 to 12 points that a goalkeeper must stay within to master the sequence, if that makes sense to you. So, yes. Yeah, and what happens is, and it's amazing, Dr. Bill, the kids I try to get them to do 100% of the sequence. Okay, let's master the 10 or 12 moments within this little activity, as simple as it is. And they might get all the way to the end, and at the very last thing, they're supposed to distribute the ball back to one of the servers, and they'll just toss it back somewhere without even realizing where it's going, as if the catch was the last thing that they need to do. When it's not. Well, we call it an exit move. I got from one of the goalkeeper coaches I worked with. When he played in Sweden, the goalkeeper coach over there said, always have an exit move. What's the thing you do next? So that you're not just forgetting something else that's coming, which always happens in our position anyway. So it's amazing to see how many of these kids cannot master the 10 or 12 little things you ask them to do in that sequence because their lack of focus of staying in a moment, releasing that moment, going through the next moment, staying within that, enjoying that moment, releasing it because it's done, going on to the next moment, and then when everything is done, kind of have an exit move where you're scanning the field or whatever it is just to get ready for what's coming next. The kids I've had most success with, as far as continuing on and dealing with mistakes and so on, have mastered the sequence I asked them to do. And I always say it's like kind of training your mind for the game, because the game is all about sequences. This is happening. Let's deal with this. When it's done, okay, what else is next? I don't feel as if we train the minds of the goalkeepers enough in our training sessions, to try and master each moment that comes at you and let it go. Because what happens in a sequence training, if you do not go on to the next moment, you're going to mess up, whether it's the footwork pattern, whether it's a communication, whether it's a completion of a certain technical task. Um, but it's gaining traction, I think, and it's something I constantly try to do now. And even though I do it an 11-week course with kids, on the 11th week, they're still forgetting something in that sequence. So I'd just be interested to ask you, does something like that make sense to you? And do you see value in it?
Yeah. Because again, you're doing, cognitive overload, which means you're giving them a lot to process, and that's how they'll develop. I think what you want to try and do is in those kind of situations is when the kid goes through it, ask them, okay, so what, give yourself a score. Which of those moments did you pass? Which of those moments did you not pass? And the kids will start to recognize, oh yeah, that my throw was crap at the end. I needed to be better with that. Okay, let's do this on the next one. Let's make sure we get that. And I think highlighting that helps give the kid direction. And you tell them, look, this is a lot to process, but this is how we're going to make you stronger mentally. Is because we're going to give you a lot to process, and you're going to be successful eventually because we are giving you all this information to process. You're going to get good at processing information. And I think that you want to do stuff like that. Now, again, the real trick is finding the balance. How many different things can you give them in an exercise? Obviously, younger kids, you give them like 3 or 4 things, but older kids now we're starting to develop. So how many can I give them? That's a challenge. You don't want them to be able to do them all the first time. I mean, a lot of coaches will give exercises that the kids can do 100% successfully right away. And I think but the kid's not growing. The kid's not developing. You want to challenge them so that, if they really focus, they might get all of them right, but there's probably going to be some mistakes. And then you highlight that and saying, okay, look, you did these of your, I don't know, half dozen movements or 8 movements, whatever. Or no, what did you say? 13 movements or 11?
Yeah, I had basically the most I've seen as I developed the kids is 12 sequences to master. Yeah.
So you got 8 of them. You missed these 4. Let's do it again. Okay, you got 8 of them again. You missed these 4. Okay, now, you got 9. You did that one. Yeah, good. And I think constantly challenging the kids pays off in terms of their desires to continually get better. Because again, they want challenges. They want to be successful meeting those challenges. And that's where the coach has to be judicious. It's not like I'm going to overwhelm the kid, but I want to give them, some things that are going to be challenging. They're not sure they can do. If you ask a kid, when you give a kid a task, if they say, can you do this? Right away they say yes, it's too easy. If you say, can you do this? Right away they say no, probably too hard. Can you do this? Yeah, I think I could do it. That's what you want. They're not sure they can do it, but they think they can. And that's where we want to get those challenges. I think that providing that challenge is an awfully difficult thing for a coach to know. Okay, how much is that optimal level? How much is too much? How much is too easy? And I think we want to make sure that with the kids, they understand that I'm going to challenge you. Okay, I'm going to give you stuff that I don't think you can do all the time. But you know what? If you really focus, if you really concentrate, you may be able to do it all the time. But let's find out. And I think by providing that challenge, that obviously that emphasizes growth, and kids are excited to see growth and see development in themselves.
Why do you think that clubs or even goalkeeper trainers, because I make the distinction between what is a goalkeeper trainer and a goalkeeper coach.
Yep.
I think as many of us do. Why do you think they don't invest in this? Because we oftentimes talk about, the mental part of the game, and the mental part of being an athlete is the most important, right? I mean, you see a lot of athletes that are physically, you look at them and go, oh, they're athletic, they're cut, they're fast, they're strong, but mentally, the pressure overwhelms them. The moment overwhelms them. So they just don't proceed past that. Why do you think clubs don't really invest this? I mean, you go out and watch a club training and it's just knocking balls to them. And and they don't really talk to them about, well, what could have been done better here? What led to this mistake? And oftentimes I see it as they're thinking about the next moment before they finish the moment that they're in. Yeah. And that oftentimes happens in a game. Or they relax in that moment. They think, oh, well, this is a routine save, and it ends up going through their fingers into the goal. So, my question, why do you think they don't spend enough time in that area?
I think because there's more YouTube videos that show how to catch than how to think. It's an easier subject. The technical aspect of goalkeeping, I mean, and maybe it's because of my background, but I think that's easier to teach than how do we accommodate pressure? How do we set good goals for ourselves? How do we deal with the anxiety prior to a game? Things like that. That's much more difficult than, okay, catch this ball. Now, catch this ball can be a whole lot more, it can be very, very difficult. But again, teaching that is very structured, kind of very concrete. Here's how you catch the ball, catch the top and the back of the ball, whatever. But how do you deal with the pressure of this situation? How do you deal with the pressure of that situation? That's not as ABC-ish. It's not as concrete. Obviously there's some individuals concerned, so that it's specific to them. It's not something a lot of coaches are comfortable dealing with. Usually they'll say, "Oh, deal with it," DWI. And there's a time when you say DWI, deal with it, because you want the kid to be able to deal with it. But there's also times when the kid needs to understand what skills will help me deal with it. And I think that's a tricky part for coaches.
See, even in the technical part of it, oftentimes I find out once you've gotten through in teaching the technical and the kid feels fairly confident with that, right? There's still that focus to do the technique right.
Yeah.
Which if you don't have that mental focus to do it right, or you're checking your hand position, maybe it's just during warm up to make sure it's correct, you're building those good habits, muscle memory and such. If that leads to many other mistakes that coaches want to fix, when it's really just one fix. It's, can we refocus? Can we stay in that moment and do it correct? Right?
Yeah, this is where it gets messy, because the mind and the body aren't separate. So, physiology affects performance or mental performance, and mental performance affects physiology. So I think this is where it gets kind of, interesting and messy, for lack of a better term, because I've got to stay focused mentally. I'm tired. Yeah, but no, you've got to stay focused mentally. So even though I'm physically tired, I can't be mentally tired. And this is why we train, to develop these abilities, to develop how one affects the other, and then how can I use the mental side to affect my physical performance? How can I use my physical performance to affect my mental side? And I think that's the beauty of goalkeeping. It has these kind of like overlapping demands that can aid each other, but also can hurt each other. Again, if I'm fine, fit, I'm ready to go, but I'm not set mentally, I'm not going to do well. And so my mental side affects my performance. If I perform really well, that's going to affect my mental performance. I'm going to be confident. I'm going to be better going forward. So it gets, like I said, it gets kind of messy when one interacts with the other. And if you don't, going back now to Podge's comment, if you don't train the other side, it's still going to be a limiting factor rather than a developing an enhancement.
Yeah. Well, I actually stole something from Blodge, if you can believe that.
Thank you, Don. Thank you, Don.
And it is really, I mean, I said it for years, but Blodge said it much more eloquently than I did, which was 0 moments of zero concentration. You can have low moments of concentration. You can have really high moments of concentration, but we can't have moments where we're not focused. We're not in, especially in our position. And so when I am training with kids, that's what we're constantly stressing is let's have 0 moments of zero concentration while we're in the environment, right? When you're outside of the environment, when your reps are over, you can relax a little bit, lower the level of focus, right? Gather your thoughts, think about what you did well, what you did wrong, what do you need to improve on going back in. And it's made a tremendous difference in the keepers that I've worked with. And one that I'll note is I've got a young lady in Chattanooga she's got me as her private goalkeeper coach, and then she goes to her club training. Well, if comes back after a while from her club training, she's dropping shots. I mean, just routine stuff, right? We're talking just contour catch. She's dropping shots because the standard or the focus isn't on the mental part of it. It's just knocking balls to them, right? And then she comes back to me and I'm like, can we just refocus? Can we get back into 0 moments of concentration and focus on moment to moment, much what Paul was talking about, that sequence training, move moment to moment, finish this, move to the next one, finish that. And in no time at all, once she gathers back her mental focus on that, she's back to what I know. And she's one step away from the national team as a youth player. So she's a very accomplished goalkeeper, at 15 years old. But I just see that's such a difference is that they don't pay attention to that. They don't have that standard to stay focused with some coaches. And the ones that do hold them to that standard, colleagues of mine, even Blodge, they have that moment where they can stay in the moment, that 0 moment of zero concentration. I just thought that was a really good way to say it and get kids to remember. So,
yeah, I always think that I think that, again, I'll go back to a guy who I've known for a long time, Dan Gold, who is at one point was the leading applied sports psychologist in the world. And he just kind of, a few years back, he said, I don't want to be called a sports psychologist. I want to be called a mental skills coach because these are skills that need to be developed, concentration especially. Think about, how much you can concentrate as a young goalkeeper. No, well, you develop that as a skill. I can concentrate for 30 seconds, then I'm tired. Okay, yeah, so let's concentrate now for 35 seconds. Let's concentrate for 40 seconds. And kids have to understand that this is a skill. There's going to be games when again, we probably all have seen it, younger goalkeepers check out of the game. They have that, as you mentioned, that moment of zero focus, zero concentration. But as they develop that skill of concentration, of focus. And that takes practice. That takes time. When I teach a sports psychology class, we'll talk about imagery. And when I talk about imagery, I want to give them all these cues and all these different, ideas to incorporate into an imagery session. And I think, but now don't think that when you walk out the door, you're going to be great at this because I've given you all the points, I've given you all the stuff like that. No, you're going to have to practice it. And it's a parallel to physical skills. I mean, you can go over, here's how you catch the ball. Here's a contour catch. Boom. Here's the points. Here's what you got to do. It's not like they go, oh yeah, boom. Okay, I can contour catch now. Great. No, it takes practice. And I think when you address these psychological skills as skills to kids and understand you got to practice it, I think that makes sense. And I think that helps them deal with lapses or shortcomings they may have and they need to develop. You know what? I can't concentrate for long. Oh, okay. So I got to work on my concentration. And there was a guy that I would chat with sometimes, Jay Fisher, and say, well, okay, volley a ball against the wall and catch it 100 times in a row. And volleying a ball against the wall and catching it, that's easy. I'm just, yeah, sure, go, boom, boom, boom. And I would count. And I would always get around 65. And then I'd screw up. I'd wank the ball, I'd drop a ball, something like that. And I go, damn, this is easy, but yet it's really hard. And so I just would go into a gym and I just volleyball against the wall and count. And eventually I got to the point where I could do 100. And I was amazed at, I mean, this is easy. I should be able to do 100 in a row, no problem. But your concentration, your focus scatters, weakens, leaves you. Well, for me, it left me around 65. I remember distinctly, I was at Furman University and just going into a gym and going, damn. And it'd be like 65, oh, 60, oh, 70, oh, 52, oh, whatever. And it's amazing that, you can't get to 100 when everybody says, yeah, it's easy. So I think the whole point of this ramble is just to say, kids, that this is a skill that you need to develop. You got to practice concentrating, because right now you can concentrate this much and this well, but we want to go this long, and much sharper. And I think, again, expressing to kids that it's a skill that needs practice helps them, because a lot of kids will think, I'm born with it or born without it. And it's like, no, this is something that you can develop. Okay. If you train this, you'll get better at it. Just like if you train a contour catch, you'll get better at it. So I think emphasizing that to kids is a real helpful idea.
I got one of the things I try and do, Dr. Bill, is well, actually, one of the problems I have with training goalkeepers is that everything's too fast. Like the kids get moving so fast that they don't finish the moment. They're always trying to go on to the next moment, like Don mentioned earlier. And so what I try to have them do, especially when they're when they're learning a technique, like a catching technique, I try to have them slow the finish down and master the finish. So I don't like seeing the ball caught outside of here and leaving it there. I like seeing body move and finish the catch. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel if you master the finish of something, everything then leading up to the finish should be good. But the problem is the way a lot of goalkeepers get trained is the finish of the catch is not important enough because something else is coming next.
Yeah.
Well, so when I'm trying to work with kids, even with kids coming back from injury, okay, their technique might be very good, but now they're coming back from injury, they haven't really touched the ball, done much for a few months. I try to get them back into the feel of things, feel the finish of the catch, get your eyes into the ball after you catch it instead of releasing your eyes too soon. Complete the finish, slow it down. And I say the only thing I want you to do fast or quickly is your footwork. Everything else, slow it down. I don't care if it's going to take you 10 seconds or 30 seconds to get through a simple sequence of things. Slow it down so you're feeling each part of the sequence, you're mastering each part of the sequence. And then once you've mastered it, then it's all just feel. So once you go back to injury again, okay, you lost your eyes. I generally say that the two things you lose real quickly when you get hurt or out of the game for a while is your eyes as a goalkeeper and your fitness. The first thing you can get back are your eyes. Once you get your eyes back into things, if you've been trained properly to stay within the catch and finish the catch, then once you get your eyes back, fitness will come, because it seems like as soon as you get their eyes back, their confidence starts to get back. Okay, I can do this again.
Yeah.
But that's got to be trained. And I have a big problem with goalkeeper coaches or trainers. Okay, there's definitely a difference. I agree with Don on that. There's the trainers don't slow things down enough so the kids can master each part of everything, get a feel for it. All they're getting a feel for is just going on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And what is happening there, you're not staying within moments. You're not learning to master moments. You can master them very quickly and go on to the next thing. I mean, some of these kids I've been training for years, they don't have to look into the ball anymore after they catch it. They just, boom, they're there and they're on to the next thing because they've mastered it, how to do it. And too many goalkeeper trainers just pound the kids, pound the kids, pound the kids, and they're basically working on fitness, I gather, and reaction times. You know what I'm saying? So the position is so much more involved in all that that you have to slow things down. You got to master things so you can go on to the next part of the progression of your development.
Yeah, I think one of the things that when I train kids, I'll tell them once you dive, after you dive, you're slowing down. That's just the physics of it. You're slowing down. Okay. And I think that kind of like allows them to understand, okay, look, I'm slowing down, but I've got to land correctly. I've got to keep the ball, things like that. And I think that when you're dealing with kids, sometimes it's good to give them kind of like what you were talking about in training, give them multiple demands. But again, this is where the coach needs to be very aware of their goalkeeper's level and what is too much and what is too little. And I think coaches, again, YouTube is a blessing and a curse. There's some really good stuff on YouTube, and then there's some stuff that I'm going like, oh, what are they thinking? And I think we just need to kind of get away from that YouTube because they're working with some kids and some of it's not good, some of it's good. But I've got to be able to know the goalkeeper I'm training. I got to know what is too much for them, what is too little for them. And that, again, if we're speaking to the goalkeeper coaches, that's one of the biggest skills that a coach needs to be able to determine what's the optimal level of challenge. In other words, what can I give you that's going to push you that you're not sure you're going to do it, but you may still be able to do it. And then when do I increase that? And one of the things I think, but to your point, giving kids a number of different activities, speaking to the coaches, I'd always start out with stuff that I'm pretty sure that they're going to be able to handle. Because I don't want to have, in other words, if I give them, okay, I'm going to strike a ball here, get up, shuffle across, strike a ball from the far side, then somebody's going to try and chip from the center. Give them those three things, and they can do those three things. And I'm going to challenge them with those three things. And then I'll add things versus give them 4 or 5 things, and then they're not capable of handling it. And they say, oh, you know what? You're not good enough. You can't handle those. Let's take away 1 or 2 steps. And right away, you're killing their confidence then saying, you know what? You can't handle this, so I'm going to have to make it easier. So I think just the caution for coaches is to, as I said, identify what's the optimal level of challenge for your kid, and then address that. And if you're not sure if you're going to make an error on the side of ease, because it's always, okay, great, we're going to add something else now. You can do those 3 things, no problem. Great. So I'm going to add a 4th thing versus you can't do those 4 things. I'm going to have to take one away. Mm-hmm. And I think you're sending, a challenging message to a kid there by saying, look, you're just not good enough yet. I thought you were better.
Yeah.
Versus
I'm just won't say that.
No, yeah.
I will, but
but the other thing you can do is say, that's great, man. That's great. You know what? I'm going to give you something else. Yeah. Think about how exciting that is for the kid, because now it's like, oh, I could do this. He had to make it harder. Yeah, because you did well. So I think that kind of that partial responsibility for that falls to the coach, and knowing your goalkeepers. What's the optimal level of challenge for them?
Go ahead.
Yeah, a question I have is we're talking about responsibility, and we mentioned parents early and their influence. We mentioned goalkeeper coaches and what we can do to help train this. What advice would you give for head coaches? Because regarding goalkeepers, we do a lot of development with our goalkeeper coaches or trainers, whether it's a training or coaching. We're with them quite a bit. And that's where we get a lot of our, fundamentals. So that's where we learn. How does head coaches are really dealing with their field players mostly? And sometimes the killer in confidence from a goalkeeper comes from a comment the head coach might say. What are some things that we can advise or give head coaches some advice on in regards to those types of moments?
I think one of the biggest things is ask questions. What did you think in this situation? Why did you do this? What were your other options? Things like that. So before you start to, provide feedback, and I'm being kind, provide some feedback, but ask questions. It's what's the Ted Lasso quote? Be curious, not judgmental. So I think if you can find out what was your kid thinking then, okay, let's work on your thinking. Okay, so you'll make a better decision then over there. So I think that's one of the first things I would tell coaches is ask questions, and then based on the response from the kid, from the goalkeeper, you can then make some suggestions. Well, I thought I could win that ball. Oh yeah, well look, did you see this defender here? You think that defender had a chance to get to the ball instead of you leaving your goal to get the ball. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. And that leads to much more of a discussion, which I think will lead to more improvements in the goalkeeper, as well as the relationship between the head coach and the goalkeeper. So I think that having those kind of discussions, and again, I'm not trying to make it sound all warm and fuzzy, because again, if the kids made a mistake, we want them to know you've made a mistake, okay? But we want them to come about understanding why that action was wrong, what action is preferred. And I think when you do that, the learning is much deeper than when I just told you to do this in this situation, so go do it, rather than understanding this is why I'm going to do it. And again, they don't have to process all that in the moment. They probably don't want to process all that in the moment. They just want to make the save. But I think by getting kids involved in the discussion, really, and again, I could talk about self-determination theory and all kinds of things, but I think just having them involved in the discussion really helps bring about, the improvement and the improved learning. So I think that's a big thing for head coaches. Second, I would say, if it's a situation where there's a head coach and a goalkeeper coach, don't be afraid to go to the goalkeeper directly, but at the same time, you got to keep the goalkeeper coach in the discussion. Because if you say something and that's, I don't know, a contradiction or something different than what the goalkeeper is hearing from the goalkeeping coach, that's obviously a real concern. Who do I listen to? Well, I'm going to listen to the head coach because they're the head coach. So I think there has to be good communication in kind of like a triangle there, with the head coach, the goalkeeper coach, and the goalkeeper. I think that it helps and again, I'm making demands on the head coach, but if the head coach shows up at training now and then, even if it's just for 5 minutes to watch, to say, oh yeah, good job on that one. Yeah, oh man, this is tough. Yeah, that kind of thing. I think that also goes a long way for, I don't know if I want to say credibility, but I may have to use that word, credibility, with the goalkeeper. It's like, yeah, this guy, he's come around to training. Sometimes he's obviously not training me into the levels of the goalkeeper coach, but he comes around. He's got kind of like a little bit of an idea about what goes on. So I think doing those things will help the head coach have a better, I don't know if I want to say relationship, but a better, I guess, better working relationship with the goalkeeper. So again, as a head coach, if I see something going on and I'm not happy with it, or I'm not understanding why this is going on, I'm going to first start off with a question or two, and then involve the assistant coach, goalkeeper coach, and the goalkeeper in the discussion, saying, here's what I want to see happen. How do we go about making that happen?
I think sometimes too, there's only one goalkeeping subject matter expert within a club. And I think that one director or coach, or even two or three, give the team a little bit of give them some numbers, but it's still not enough. And I think sometimes it's hard for head coaches to have those conversations with that goalkeeping coach to help with that situation. At the same time, I completely agree. Like, I think that communication with head coaches and goalkeeper coaches within a club, it almost needs to be a structured event that has to take place, whether it's a post-match or like report, or because goalkeeper coaches aren't getting to training sessions, kind of what you were suggesting, even for 5 minutes, like it helps. They're not getting to games. And that's hard, I think, sometimes for a goalkeeper, and it's hard for a head coach when they have those odd moments because the subject matter expert kind of isn't in the room. And I think head coaches can win a lot of credibility by learning the goalkeeping position a little bit more, but it does lead to some confusion, and which does lead to a decrease in confidence, which now we're back to that mental kind of issue or the psychological issue with that goalkeeper.
Well, I think you got to put a fair amount of responsibility on the goalkeeper coach. And the situation you described, I think that's really common, where it's like, okay, I'm the goalkeeper coach of this club. On Saturday, I'm bouncing. I'm going to watch half an hour of this game. I'm going to watch half an hour of that game. I'm going to watch half an hour of that game. And I think that's where the goalkeeper coach needs to be, I don't know if I say aggressive or open with the head coach and saying, like, okay, so what do you think he needs to work on? So I'm the goalkeeper coach. I'm going to say, I have some ideas about what I think he needs to work on. you're watching the games. What do you think he needs to work on? And, what happens in the games? Because again, if I'm bouncing around from game to game, I may not see all the instances. I may not see all the action for that particular goalkeeper. And it may be that in this game, there were a lot of breakaways, or in this league, there's a lot of breakaways that he doesn't handle well. So we're going to have to spend some time on that. If I don't get a chance to see that, the head coach will, because they're there for all, I don't know, whatever, 80, 90 minutes of the game. I think bringing them into discussion in that way, saying, what do you think they need to work on? What situations were a struggle for them? What do they do well? What do they have accomplished that, okay, yeah, that's good. So we can now address those other things that maybe you don't think they're as capable of. And that may lead to a discussion where the goalkeeping coach then has to kind of ask the head coach, okay, well, look, can we do this drill together? Because I think this will help the goalkeeper and I'm speaking more of the interaction between the goalkeeper and the field players. This will help them do that. Because again, a head coach is, again, just knowing as many head coaches that have, they generally will say, here's what we're doing in practice. And they haven't consulted with the goalkeeper coach. But is there an exercise that can work for the goalkeeper, but it can also work for the field players? And when I would do the advanced national goalkeeping course, I would spend a lot of time saying, okay, we're going to do an activity that on Monday, you're going to coach your front runners. Okay. On Wednesday, do the same drill, but now stand in goal and coach your goalkeeper. And I think those types of exercises where we do want to try and address things that we'd like to improve in the goalkeeper in relation to the team. I think those things need to be done, but a lot of times the assistant coach, the goalkeeper coach, kind of feels like, no, I just do these things here and then they go to the team and that's it. In other words, can I talk to the head coach and say, hey, could you do some kind of drill that is going to provide a lot of breakaway situations? Maybe like remove a defender or something like that, play numbers up for the attack so they get a lot of breakaways. Can we do something like that? And I would think, again, depending on the ego of the head coach, I would think they might appreciate that because it's like, oh yeah, okay, good. Yeah, that's something we can do. So again, there's no way to say this is what you say to the head coach. I don't know the head coach. I don't know the goalkeeper coach. I don't know the goalkeeper. I don't know the situation. But I think that there has to be some points where the goalkeeper coach says to the head coach, hey, here's something that would help your front runners and it would also help our goalkeeper. Can we do something like this? Because again, I think that's going to benefit the team as an entity. And I think that that's something that, both the assistant coach, the goalkeeper coach, and the head coach want.
We will be back after this message from our sponsors.
Goalkeepers, what does your goalkeeping development roadmap look like? Are you focusing on all 5 elements of development of a goalkeeper? Those 5 elements are your technical abilities, your tactical understanding of the game, your physical growth, your psychological balance, and your leadership skills. If you answered no to any of those elements of development, you are not fully developing yourself as a goalkeeper. Here at the United Goalkeeping Alliance, we focus on developing goalkeepers through education of goalkeeping specific moments in the game, all while featuring the 5 elements of a goalkeeper's development. For $199 for the year, yes, the cost of 2 one-hour private training sessions, you will have the opportunity to participate in weekly live educational sessions on goalkeeping specific topics. You can also take advantage of our library of over 250 hours of recorded goalkeeping educational content. You have the opportunity to participate in goalkeeping specific mentorships. You'll have an immediate connection to college goalkeeper coaches. You'll also have the opportunity to have 24/7 online support. You'll also receive discounts for gloves, equipment, camps, and clinics. So goalkeepers, if you'd like to learn more on how the United Goalkeeping Alliance can support you with your goalkeeping developmental roadmap, please contact us at the information above. I'm Eric Eisenhut of the United Goalkeeping Alliance. Now back to our podcast.
And now back to our episode.
Yeah.
So I want to take this a little different direction. and I know Eric's got a hard out at 11:30. So as much as we can, goalkeeper mental health. So back whenever Katie Meyer passed away, it sort of raised some awareness to this, right? And more so than it had in the past. And it was right after that. And Eric, I still swear I saw this link on the WhatsApp and I can't find it. Dr. Bill, you may know or have seen it, where there was a study done about suicide rates among positions in sports, different positions, team sports or individuals. And it listed goalkeepers, soccer goalkeepers, number one, because of certain factors that lead to a mental health breakdown. And part of it being the isolation is inherent to the position. Like you mentioned earlier, you've got nobody behind you to back you up if you make a mistake, where a defender's got you or somebody else. They don't feel as connected to teammates because they know normally they're training off by themselves until they come back to the team. The coaches don't engage with the goalkeepers the way they do the field players. You know, we're at halftime, we're warming up instead of with the team listening to the halftime talk or whatever. The attitude toward goalkeepers, where we're considered crazy, you know, that's why we're different. And so how is it with our youth? Because I see, I deal with a lot of goalkeepers, and with some of them, they just break down and they're feeling this pressure from their coach, from their parents. And you start talking to them. How do we protect their mental health? What is it we can do as coaches, goalkeeper coaches, and within clubs to protect these kids? Because it's a lot. It's a lot. And so many of them don't understand. And that goes back to why I don't feel like kids under the age of 10 should really do a lot of goalkeeper training, just because, but it's a lot and they don't know how to handle it. And a lot of coaches, like you said, it's a messy thing. They don't get invested in that and they don't know how to handle it with their kids. What are some things that we can do, parents can do? Because I will say, I have to get on parents a lot. Stay off your kid.
Oh, yeah.
Stay off your kid. All right. You don't understand it. If you want to step into an adult league and go play goalkeeper and find out what it's about, have at it, but stay off the kid, right? Because you don't understand what they're going through. What are some things that you see? And as the new director of education for the USC, is this something that we're going to see in courses maybe coming up about more about the mental side of the goalkeeper?
Yeah, a couple things come to me. Is again, it's very easy to point at the people that should be support groups that actually aren't supportive. My son wasn't a goalkeeper, but he was a soccer player. And after his practices, he'd get in the car, and the first thing I'd say is like, "Where do you want to eat?" Because it's not about the game. The game's not important. The game's important, sure, but it's got a limited impact here. What's important is like us being together. And so I think parents, they may feel like, well, my son wants to talk about the game. Well, no. You want to talk about the game, and you're going to have your son do that. It's better to leave that open and wait for them. And if they want to talk about it, yeah, be there, be supportive of them. So I think that, parents can obviously be better in terms of that. I think we have to speak directly to the goalkeepers and say, look, what's important? And they're going to say, giving up a goal. Okay, big picture, what's important? Making them understanding goalkeeping is important, but it's a very limited factor in your life, who you're going to be. And if you wanted to get them to be a little bit more objective, how many years are you going to be a goalkeeper, a competitive goalkeeper? Okay. How many years are you going to be alive? Oh, so I'm going to be a competitive goalkeeper 20 years. I'm going to be 80 years old. Oh yeah, that's kind of different. Okay. And I think that helps the kids understand that, yeah, it's in the moment, it's the most important thing. But once that moment is over, it's gone. It's gone. Okay. And obviously, there's a lot of people that impact that mentality. There's always these, you'll hear about, a league in Massachusetts. Well, we don't keep score. You know what? If you ask any of the kids playing what the score is, they'll tell you what the score is.
Yes.
But after the game, they don't care. The parents care. And so I think that we have to kind of eliminate that extrinsic pressure on kids. I think when we talk to kids about this, I think they have to understand, again, this is important in the moment, but it's not who you are. It's not, you could say you're a goalkeeper and that's my identity. Yeah, but you know what? Are there any other things? What other things do you have? And this is where a coach can be a little bit facilitative in asking about these other things. Who are you listening to on your headphones?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know them. That kind of thing. Those kind of discussions are helpful because, again, it kind of like broadens the perspective of the kid. I think also along those same lines, what I wanted to talk about is like I always had an outlet. It's like music. I listen to a ton of music. I'm going back now. I got a room upstairs with I think 10,000 CDs. CDs were physical types of things that you could play music on.
I know what they are.
Kids. Yeah, I know, but none of the kids listening are going to know.
Any of the players listening are like, what?
Yeah, yeah. But I think giving kids an outlet and saying, what else do you do? If you're a goalkeeper and I'm your goalkeeper coach, what else do you do? Excuse me.
Bless you.
Are you active in other sports? Do you have what's your favorite kind of movie? Did you see this? Do you listen to this kind of music? Those kind of things. I think that broadens the perspective. And I think that helps to, I don't know if I want to say lighten the load, but I think that definitely helps the goalkeeper reduce the amount of pressure because everything is not goalkeeping. And again, I think that, when I am on the field, yeah, everything is about goalkeeping. Everything is about performance. Everything is about doing things to the best of my abilities. When I am off the field, I can be as relaxed or as goofy or unconcerned as you want. I think having kids develop that outside of it, and then again, that was one of the situations with Mars. She was very invested in goalkeeping in terms of her future, and I think that's okay. But you need to have other things going on. You can't just have this, and I think that's where a goalkeeper coach can address that by asking about that. What else do you do? What's your favorite subject in school? What subject do you really hate at school? Those kind of things. I think opening it up is very helpful. When we talk in you mentioned United Soccer, when we talk there, we talk a lot about kind of like a global or a holistic perspective on it. Like, yeah, you want to be a goalkeeper and for 90 minutes, that's all that matters. But outside of that 90 minutes, it kind of fades, diminishes. So I think that having that maybe I'll fall back on the word holistic perspective on the kid. Again, not the goalkeeper, but on the kid. What else do you do? Tell me what else you do. When I speak to coaches, I'll talk about how valuable the time is walking to the field and walking off the field, because that's when I'm like, okay, so how's school? Did you see this on television? Did you watch that? That kind of thing. Because that kind of, again, that will reduce the load of the pressure of what we're about to do. So I think talking about that is a good thing. And again, that communication about lifestyle is probably very helpful in terms of reducing the pressure, reducing, I guess I might say it enables them an ability to get away from goalkeeping, which I think is helpful at times.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Dr. Bill. I know, I think it's important for us as coaches to understand, like say in a training session, when things are just going negative or just you're not getting accomplished what you want to get accomplished. The kids are all over the place. What I try and do is change his perspective completely. Like to say, for example, we're training and now there's a gorgeous sunset going on. I'll stop practice. And I'll just turn around and look at that for a moment, you know? And the kids go, oh, wow, that's great. And then, or if I'm kind of known for this, excuse me, but I taught astronomy. So I'm always pointing things out, the planets in the sky and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it comes to a point, Dr. Bill, where the kids will actually ask, okay, Blanche, what's going to be in the sky tonight? What are we going to see? So, it's interesting because they look forward to stuff like that, and it kind of cuts the moment a little bit. And then when you get right back into what we're doing, all of a sudden the attention is diverted and gotten better, and it's I think it's important to as coaches, we got to recognize a moment when, all right, this is not working. Let's change things. Let's do something completely off the wall and see if you can catch them. And all of a sudden they go, oh, they kind of gets what's going on, and then boom, we
Yeah.
get right back into it. And the other thing I do is, like I always tell kids that one of my favorite things to do as a teacher is to bust chops on kids. I just have so much fun doing that because they don't know if you're
Mm.
serious. And then, you got to let them know I'm just having fun. This is the way I have fun in my age. Okay. So don't take it seriously. It's dualfold because I'm trying to get them to take criticism, but at the same time, want to know this doesn't really matter. I'm just trying to reach it in a different way. So I think those kinds of things are important. I don't think, once again, the difference between a trainer and a coach slash teacher slash mentor, they're going to pick up on those moments and use them as means of trying to, all right, let's get back together here. Let's get this thing going, slow it down, change gears. All right, let's go again. We're trainers, uh, young coaches who have not been taught how to be a coach yet, and they're still learning themselves. They don't understand these little moments in there that are very, very important so you can retain a high level of learning but have fun at the same time and change things up just to see if the kids are adaptable to changing those thought patterns.
Yeah. No, agreed. One of the things I would do as coaches, if things aren't going well, I'll stop. I'll bring everybody in. Hey, is that good enough?
Mm-hmm.
And just ask that question. Is that good enough? Because first off, I'm acknowledging things aren't good, but second, I'm getting their opinion, because if they think that's good enough, I'm gonna have to tell them, no, that's not good enough. Okay, we need a higher standard. So then how do we achieve that higher standard? And again, I've got answers in my mind, but I want to see if they have answers. And if you ask that and they say, oh, well, we really need to pick up our footworking, we're just kind of lazy and standing. Great, that's great, spot on, good. Let's go back and do that. If they don't know, as a coach, I'm responsible. I better know the answer, because if I say, how can that be better? And they say, I don't know, and they look at me and I say, I don't know either, I'm not helping. So I've got to know those answers. And I think giving the kids an opportunity to self-coach is a big deal. And if I say, okay, yeah, so what are we going to do? Oh, well, we really got to be a lot quicker with our first step. Okay, so let's go back. And I can say to them, look, you said you got to be better with your first step. Was that first step better? Okay. I think giving them responsibility for their performances in the session is a very good thing. One of the things that, again, we could tell stories about parents and so forth, but if the session didn't go well, it's the coach's fault. The coach is responsible for the session. No, you know what? The kids are responsible for the performance. And so I want them to take responsibility. I'll have this conversation with parents. Is, you want to raise responsible children? Yes. Well, what do you allow them to be responsible for? And they don't have anything. So it's like, no, give the kids some responsibility here. And I think that helps them then, okay, if I'm responsible for it, I want this to be good. And I want this to go well. And one of the interesting things is when I'll do that, a lot of times I'll see kids start to get on other kids and hold other kids accountable, which is a good thing. And I'll mention that. But I think having the kids understand that, look, you guys know this isn't good, and you know how to fix it. Because again, a lot of times I'll ask, what are we going to do to make this better? They will know the answers. So it's like, look, you guys know how to make this better, so do it. And I think giving them that responsibility is helpful, obviously for that specific session, but just in a bigger perspective, in having them be responsible for their own, growth as a player.
I want them to be accountable for it. And I always mention, as a goalkeeper coach, I can prepare an environment through their focus, work rate, attitude. They actually create the environment.
Yeah. Because we all probably had sessions where things are just buzzing. It's great. Yeah, and it's not like I did anything different. I could do the same thing tomorrow, and it's not going to be as buzzing and not going to be as energetic. But you guys really took that, and again, as a coach, that's kind of sessions that gives me goosebumps. It's like, yeah, you guys really flew through that. That was great. And ultimately, they have to understand that, look, when you come to practice, if you're tired, if you're fatigued, if you're pissed off at something, yeah, I'm sympathetic to an extent. But once you cross that line, flip the switch, man. Now it's like go time, and leave all that stuff behind. Unpack your baggage, put it off to the side, step onto the field, and get that energy back.
Great question. We've spoken about parents, goalkeepers, teammates, goalkeeper coaches, and head coaches. What can clubs do in this with this? I don't want to call it an issue, but with the psychological balance, with the pressures for goalkeeping, with the pressures in general, what can clubs do to support their club with this?
Oof, that's one that I hope this is appropriate, but I think how does a club measure its success? If you're a club and somebody says, is your club successful? What makes you say yes? What makes you say no? And I think a lot of clubs will say, oh, yeah, well, look, we won this tournament, we won that tournament, we won this state championship, we won that state championship. Okay, but how many of your under 14s are still playing at under 19s? And I think that's a key measure. A lot of clubs will think about it in terms of finances, but player retention. No, but how do we make people fall in love with the game and want to play it as long as they physically can? How do we do that? So from a club standpoint, I think that if they emphasize, okay, we've had players develop to this goal. If you're a professional club, no, you want trophies, you want hardware. But if you're a youth club, where have we sent players? Where have our players gone? Have we developed players that have been, all state? Have we developed players? And again, there's a lot of emphasis now on going, what schools do you go to, things like that, and the other things. But I think that how many players do you develop? Because if I'm a club, if I'm a parent rather, and I'm going to, I want my kid associated with this club, are they going to develop them? I mean, yeah, it's great if the team wins, but if my kid doesn't develop, I'm not happy. If the team loses, I'm not happy. But if my kid develops, I'm happy. So it's like, how do you develop players? How many players have you taken in as under 12s, and then they've gone on to play in college? How many, again, going back to retention rate, how many of your players do you keep? I think those are important things for clubs to consider. Specific to goalkeeping, it's how many kids do you develop as goalkeepers that stay as goalkeepers? You had 90 kids in the under 14 goalkeeping session. Well, how many kids do you have in the goalkeeping session at under 17? Some of that attrition is going to happen just as the position becomes, again, given the nature of goalkeeping, the position is much more limited. In other words, we have, I don't know how many midfielders playing in a game, how many goalkeepers do we have playing in a game? So it's a little bit difficult in that regard. I think another thing clubs can do that will definitely help development is stuff like that is there's a situation at North Carolina where we had Shelly Finger and Tracy Noonan were our top two goalkeepers, and both have national team experience. Actually, Tracy ended up with the 99s. Both of them were really good, and it was very competitive. So we ended up figuring out, okay, so let's see. They're going to alternate halves and alternate starts. And so Shelly would start one game, Tracy would have the second half. Next game, Tracy starts, Shelly has the second half. And we did that because, again, obviously some games, we all know from being a goalkeeper, some games, you don't touch the ball. So we couldn't do game by game because one person gets a game against Duke and the other person gets a game against some other school that's not very competitive. It's not the same thing. It's not the same experience. It's not, they won't develop. So I think if clubs went to an idea of like, look, if you have two goalkeepers, you can say, okay, during our league, here's what we're going to do with goalkeepers. Now, the other thing with North Carolina was those goalkeepers, Shelley and Tracy, knew they were competing for the national tournament. Because in the national tournament, we're not going to alternate goalkeepers. We are going with whoever was best during the regular season. And I think if you had that kind of a format with youth, where it's like, okay, I've got two goalkeepers, they're going to alternate, and alternate starts, alternate halves. But when we go to this tournament, when we go to State Cup, one goalkeeper is going to play. And that helps because it's competitive during the season. It also helps because if you say, okay, we're going with this one goalkeeper and they get hurt in the first 5 minutes of a game, the other goalkeeper has been playing and they're comfortable playing. It's not like, oh, I haven't played in 6 months. Now I've got to play. So I think having that kind of, and again, if there's a huge discrepancy between the goalkeepers, it's going to become more difficult. But if the kids are fairly compatible in their abilities, I think I just really like doing that because again, I think the purpose of club is developmental, and I think that's one of the best ways to develop people, which is to give them playing time. Because again, we all know the value of playing time. There's things that happen in that playing time that we train for, but we never can actually replicate. But also, it's competitive. Like I want to do really well because I'm trying to get to this. I want to be the goalkeeper for the state tournament, and I want to be better than my colleague. So I think that kind of idea would help for clubs. Again, is it practical? I can't say. I'm not a director of the club, but I would think it would help in a lot of regards in terms of development of goalkeeper.
It's interesting because you're mentioning like changing and splitting games at the highest level at the time women's soccer in the Division I NCAA for UNC, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you're talking about splitting halves. If you sometimes even propose that to a youth parent, they would lose it because their kid's not getting all the time. And I just think that the expectations sometimes need to come from the club to the parents and the goalkeepers and from the head coach to them about here's how we're going to handle it due to a development standpoint and the age of the goalkeeper. But when we do get to competitive tournaments, here's how we're going to approach it. That honest approach goes a long way, in my opinion, to parents, to everyone, just sets expectations.
Well, I think if I'm in a club setting, depending on your roster size, the goalkeeper that's not playing, you know what? Jump into midfield. If we had now again, I understand that's also going to mean that there's a regular midfield that's going to be sitting. But if you have a smaller roster size, I was just talking with Serkin Cook, who's the Croatian under-15, under-17 team coach. I got to limit the rosters of our youth clubs because again, they're very large, and that means a lot of subs. So just have more teams. But if a goalkeeper could play in the field, I think we would all appreciate that as goalkeepers, that playing in the field really helps me understand the game. So again, I'm not sure if that would work out. I think it depended on the roster size for each club, but I think that would be something to, okay, look, you're going to sit, but you'll get 10 minutes running in the midfield, something like that. That helps accommodate that. But again, if the club does a good job of developing goalkeepers, I think that will carry weight with a parent that may want their child to play every minute.
Right. That's helpful. Coach Don, Coach Paul, any last questions for Dr. Bill?
Dr. Bill, I could talk to you all day.
No, this is fun. This is great.
Yeah, fantastic conversation. And I really appreciate it. I hope that, maybe at some point I could give you a phone call and talk some more. You're a busy man, but this has been a very, very interesting conversation and something that I really appreciate and very much believe in. So having you on this show is a tremendous boon for the education of our goalkeepers, the parents, and actually coaches too. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. You try to keep the car straight over there.
Yeah. Well, that's a task in and of itself.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh yeah. And then say hello to Anson if you talk to him in his
yeah,
retirement.
I do occasionally. He's trying to keep busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, but it's been great talking to you. I could sit here for hours and just discuss
Yeah.
things and listen. And again, what we always think is it's very helpful to see people like yourself who have done it at the highest levels and to know that we're not that far off. But then you look at the big picture of things and go, wow, it seems like we really are so far off because it's a little bit at a time. It's a few
Yeah.
people at a time. And so I'm
Well,
very,
we always want to be functional perfectionists. I'm gonna try and be perfect. I know it can't, but I'm just gonna always try and be perfect. And that always gives you a goal. Always gives you something you can shoot for.
We will be back after this message from our sponsors.
Hello, clubs. What is your goalkeeper culture like? Do you have 1 to 2 people that just does it all? Whether they're down the other end of the field running a goalkeeper training session, maybe they're helping a head coach out in a team training session. Maybe they attend all tournaments and games and give in-game feedback. They help with individual development plans. They help in the recruiting initiative. Simply put, they can't do it all. Here at the United Goalkeeping Alliance, we're here to be your supplemental resource for all things goalkeeping. We start with education. We will help assist in the goalkeeping development through educating your goalkeepers on goalkeeping specific topics featuring the 5 elements of development: your tactical understanding, your technical abilities, the physical growth of a goalkeeper, the psychological balance, and the leadership skills needed to be a great goalkeeper. We have over 250 hours of recorded content for all of your goalkeepers and coaches and parents to take advantage of. We offer mentorships for both goalkeepers and goalkeeper coaches. We offer lesson plan support and curriculum support for coaches. If you'd like to learn more about the United Goalkeeping Alliance and how we can help your club get to the next level with your goalkeeping culture as a supplemental resource, please utilize the contact information above. This is Eric Eisenhut of the United Goalkeeping Alliance, and now back to the episode.
And now back to our episode.
Dr. Bill, what we like to do at the end of this show is we like to let you leave early, and then the 3 of us stick around and talk about you.
That's really fun.
That's been done dozens of times. Don't worry, man. You can't top what other people have done. So
It's part of life. It's a part of life, right, Bill?
Yeah, exactly.
In all honesty, we always like to give you last words, though, too, for you to wrap up your thoughts on this conversation. So before we let you go, I'd like to give you last words, please.
Yeah, I think if anybody takes anything away from this, I think first off, the pressure, what's the cliche? Pressure is a privilege. Yeah, I want pressure. Okay, so don't view it as negative, view it as something that can help me. And then I think the other big thing is, and I mentioned this at some point, but a couple of other times, I probably should keep mentioning that these are skills. Don't think, oh, I watched this podcast, I'm going to be great. Pressure's going to be my friend. No, it takes practice. It takes skill. Just as the analogy to physical skills, you got to practice them. I can't teach you how to do a contour catch, and in 30 seconds you can do a contour catch. No, you got to practice it. And the same with these mental skills is you have to practice them. But if you do practice them, just as with the physical skills, if you do practice them, you will get better. You will develop those skills. So I think those are probably the 2 big points to take away.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Dr. Bill. We greatly appreciate your time today. And again, as always, I know we'll see you at the convention. I know Lige will be at the convention. He'll be seeing you there.
Never been.
Yeah, I'm going to hunt you down, Dr. Bill.
Yeah, no, I'm there. I'm actually, there's a special topics modern goalkeeping course.
If you see him coming, turn and go the other
way. You're not the only one, Dr. Bill.
Yeah. The reputation precedes me.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Dr. Bill, thank you very much.
Great, fellas. This was really fun. This was really
been
fun.
A pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Nice. That went quick. That went fast.
Yeah, it did. Literally could talk to him all day.
His experience is awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, good guy too. I like him. He's a good man.
Yeah.
It's nice to see somebody that's risen to his level, to come up pretty much through the ranks like a lot of us have, and he definitely found his niche and stayed with it and has done a tremendous job. He's a wealth of knowledge, that man.
Yeah, I read a lot of his studies in prep for this, and it's all just eye opening. So, and he's able to break it down in such a way that he can even make such a technical paper sound easy to understand, right?
Yeah.
Just makes it puts it in layman's terms, I guess, is what you would.
Yeah.
So
one of the things I like that he said, and he said this a lot, like he didn't say the words, but it's the words that we use quite a bit on this podcast, is the word life lessons.
Yeah.
And he was pretty adamant that like this isn't something that's just a soccer skill. Like these are things that you're going to be able to utilize for the rest of your life in many different scenarios, whether it's your job dealing with people, whether it's a relationship or school or project management. Like there's a lot of things that you can learn from this. And to your points, his experience and how smoothly he talks about something at such a high complex level, but he breaks it down to the to the dumbest of folks and makes it
Sports Psychology for Dummies. There's the
book. Yeah. I like the life lesson aspect is something that I incorporate in the position all the time, because I firmly believe that this position can really prepare people for their life experiences. If you do your due diligence and you train your try to master the whole aspects of the position as best you possibly can, realizing that things are going to change and it's a process. It's not something you're going to learn overnight, but it definitely really prepares you for dealing with certain things that are going to blindside you a little bit just because of the demands of the position and the pressures of the position. So, yeah, that was great stuff. I really enjoyed it.
Don, I liked your question about the USC potentially bringing in classes or courses regarding
Me too. Yeah.
Psychological balance or that type of training. I think that was a well-pointed question.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I don't think they have any. I think it all has to do with, if they do, it's just a little blurb inside of whatever course it is you're learning.
Yeah.
I just don't remember.
Well, it just seems to me like everything with the position, everybody wants to learn or do something is fast about it, but it's all basic stuff. It's such an involved position, and it takes a lot of maturity and as we talk about making mistakes and so on, that people don't take to this part of it as much because they don't see the results as fast as they do maybe with like having a good game, making saves and those kinds of things. It's the mental development, the emotional development, and the psychological development that takes time. And unfortunately, it's still one of the least developed parts of the game. So I'm hoping this conversation will resonate across the board. And this is a very, very important session that we're doing. And
that's what I talk to my goalkeepers a lot about, is to parents, to even head coaches, people that don't really know the position. When they see a goalkeeper not having to make a save in a game, they think they didn't do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they're communicating and staying engaged and distributing, well, and things, man. And, in one of the papers that I read, Dr. Steffen spoke of, was goalkeepers come off the field a different type of exhausted.
Yeah, very true.
Right? Because we've not run, 5 and 6 miles, collectively through a game. We're mentally exhausted, and it feels like we're physically exhausted. Because we are staying engaged in the game. We are mentally there, and it's just different type of exhaustion. But people don't understand that they are really working out there. It's just in a different way. And it's like I say, parents don't think you're training unless you're jumping around like a fish out of water. And it's so misunderstood by everybody. That was one of the things that was also in one of the articles I read, was that even teammates don't understand when a goalkeeper comes off the field, how different it is, what the feeling is, because they don't relate to it. They're physically working, but goalkeeper, it's just different. And it's another way that they're isolated from the team, is that nobody can relate to them, right? No one really has that relation. So it's so much.
You're right about that, Don. There's a lot. Like, you feel like we're accomplishing, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you can head up and you look up and you're like, whoa, there's so much more to do.
Yeah. So
guys, I'd like to give you guys last words, to give obviously your last comments on today with Dr. Bill, and we move forward. Don, can I start with you, or Paul, can I start with you?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. I think Dr. Bill spoke about the pressures of the position very well, noting the fact that the pressures are vast, incorporate a lot of different things. It takes practice. It's a skill. And that's the thing I see most of all in a lot of the training that I do with kids today. We don't approach our training sessions with the proper mental attitude. And I know a lot of people say, we got to train the goalkeepers more within the game. I get that. But still, you can train goalkeepers within the game, but you still might be missing mental aspects of development that are they're not being addressed. And I think that's kind of like the future of goalkeeping, in my opinion. If we want to have more successful goalkeepers come through our programs, we have to address the pressures of the position. We have to address the mental development and mental aspects of the position, because if we don't, we're just going to be normal or below normal. We want all our kids to succeed. But when you think of the number of kids that are goalkeepers out there right now, how many of them are getting what we talked about today? I mean, the percentages have got to be really, really low. And it's a product of the family development, the parents understanding, the goalkeeper trainers and coaches understanding, and the head coaches understanding. I mean, it's almost like an impossible thing for us to address, because it just seems like a mountain of things against us all the time, But we just keep chipping away at it, keep chipping away at it, keep chipping. I mean, I'm in my 50th year of coaching now, and I've seen improvements, but a lot of things were still the same. And at least the awareness seems to be increasing a bit more. So kudos to Dr. Bill for his advice and his suggestions and his thoughts, because it was a very, very, very good stuff.
Nice. Well said.
I second that. I mean, I've known Bill for a long time, and it's always refreshing to hear him, like I said, speak. And I think this episode is going to be really good for people to listen to, because he makes what seems so complex seem so simply understood.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
And I hope parents, coaches, goalkeeper trainers / coaches, clubs listen to it and really see the value in this. And that's where my question was going, is we train so much of the physical, and then we forget the mental part of it. And it is such a huge part of this position.
Yeah. From
not only being able to just read the game and understand it, but also it leads to technical breakdowns. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how many coaches, trainers can recognize that this isn't really a technical aspect. This was just a loss of focus. I mean, anybody see the game yesterday with, oh Lord. Whoa, what team was it? The goalkeeper got caught in no man's land in the EPL. Oh my God, I filmed it. And I mean, it's nothing more than just a mental focus. I mean, even the announcers are like, we're not really sure why he's out there. And it was against John McGinn. So it must have been West Ham or Aston Villa, where he just open goal. And the guy's 20 yards outside the goal. I'll send you a link to it. Just look it up.
Is that the one where the ball is shot, went off the crossbar? Like he came way out, the ball went off the crossbar, and his defenders are trying to kick the ball off the line and everything else.
That's probably another one, but this one is where Austin Villa won the ball, and he saw him again. He just played it over the top, and the goalkeeper was never adjusted once he distributed the ball. He was caught 25, 30 yards out.
Oh, boy.
And McGinn gets the ball, looks up, and goes, "Thank you." He turns around him and knocks it in an open goal. And you're just like, that's totally mental. There's nothing technical about that. And it happens at the highest levels, right?
Yeah,
This mental breakdown. And I'm sure they have mental training.
Yeah.
Imagine when it gets at the youth.
Yeah.
Just crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. So I always enjoy Dr. Bill. I really do. And I really hope this episode is really listened to by a lot of people.
I agree with you totally.
Yeah, he's if you haven't, like, Dr. Bill's phenomenal. I know I'm not speaking, I'm preaching the choir with you two here, obviously, but for those of you going to the convention or being able to see him, please do so. Your life will get better. I loved how he spoke about life lessons. I love how he spoke about pressures of privilege. I wrote that down, and I think I love the question he put out there, where how many of you want a stress-free environment, and everyone raises their hand. And then he said, how many of you want to compete at a national championship level? And everyone raises their hand. Like, you can't have both. That's a pressured-filled environment. You can't have both. So it's like, kind of pick your direction, but can we prepare and help these players with the mental component to the game? And it's, in my opinion, I don't think enough people assume responsibility for it. It's very easy to point a finger and tell people they did wrong. It's hard to help people with, hey, here are some tools to help you with that. Never mind technical and stuff, but just the focus. Like, that's a life lesson, right? Focusing it on a test that you're taking in school, focusing it on whatever, right? But the same thing with goalkeeper training. Blige, I love how you're talking about your 12 moments of a training session. Or it's staying in that zone, and staying in a zone for 90 minutes is really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Really hard. To Don's point, it's a different type of exhaustion, no doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Cool. Good stuff,
All right,
guys.
everybody. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And without further ado, we'll see you all at our next episode. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us at this edition of Crossbar Conversations with Don and Blige, powered by the UGKA, United Goalkeeping Alliance, the #1 virtual learning platform for goalkeeping in the world. That's pretty cool. We take the whisperings of goalkeepers from underneath the crossbars, and we bring them to you in open and honest conversations. There's nothing about the position that we won't talk about. Looking forward to all of our conversations that will be upcoming. You, as a goalkeeper, have chosen the most difficult position to master in the game. But remember, it's the best position in the best game in the world. Special thanks today for joining us with Eric Eisenhut, the founder of the UGKA, for offering his insights on what the UGKA is all about, as well as sharing his knowledge about the position and his passion of what he would like to see happen with it and what we need to work on. Thank you very much, Eric. It was great. See you next time. Crossbar Conversations with Don and Blige. And we appreciate it very much. By the way, if you would like to offer your suggestions on different topics for us to talk about, feel free to contact us through the email address that you see at the upper part of the screen. That's info@unitedgkalliance.com. Once again, info@unitedgkalliance.com. That's it. Look forward to seeing you next time. Had a blast. Thank you.